Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. This video is going to be about answering some of your questions. So I picked 3 questions that I received either in email or through comments, and I just decided that those are really nice topics to talk about. Some of them are something that I've received several times throughout throughout some period of time. So I just decided to make a video to help you understand those topics better. So I hope that you will find this Q&A episode valuable. So let's begin. I'm going to read things from my computer. So just to explain why I'm looking down here. Okay, let's start with the first question. I've been dealing with sleep anxiety or insomnia for a year or less. I've engaged in all sorts of sleep efforts and behaviors, earplugs, melatonin every night, turning the fan away from me, thinking about sleep all the time, no matter what I do. I've left some of the efforts, by the way, but not all. Almost like my mind is so fixated on it and views it as a threat. So my questions were, do I truly need to let all the sleep efforts and behaviors go to feel and sleep normal, like this never happened? Is this all that's holding me back? How long can I expect bad nights, and when will good nights start to pick up? So I see that there are more topics brought up in this message, so I will just cover several things in my response. And the first thing that I want to share with you is that we need to kind of differentiate between sleep efforts and sleep-related behavior, because in my opinion, they are not the same thing. There's a lot of things that we are doing that is kind of related to sleep, but yet we don't really have any sort of like efforting intention there. For example, when we go to bed, we turn the lights off, or we are using blankets, or we brush teeth in the evening, right? So technically speaking, all those behaviors are in some way connected to sleep or preparation for sleep, right? But are they really sleep efforts? In my view, they're absolutely not efforts. They're actually just some common sense things that we do to make our nighttime experience comfortable. When we talk about sleep efforts, what we essentially imply is that it's the motive behind the action, the expectation that we have when it comes to doing this activity, and then what sort of outcome we try to get out of it. And when the expectation or pressure of a certain outcome is so strong, then we can talk about that activity being a sleep effort. But in itself, things like even earplugs or whatever, using some, supplements or anything, they're actually neutral things. They are not really inherently bad or wrong, right? What makes them tricky is that what we are trying to achieve through them, right? If there is some sort of like avoidance underneath that activity, then it might be tricky. But other than that, we don't have to be afraid of any sort of behavior that might be directly or indirectly connected to sleep. So I hope that this clarifies some aspects, because what I notice, people sometimes start to overthink everything that they are doing in regards to just living their normal lives, and they might start thinking that, oh my God, if I do this, is this a sleep effort? Or if I choose that thing, is it an effort, right? And in itself, the whole process of trying to figure out what is an effort and what is not an effort becomes draining. And in itself, that just adds more pressure. So I just want to really maybe help you decrease the amount of pressure, and just to say that just because there is sleep-related behavior, it doesn't mean that it's wrong, or that it means that you have to abandon everything, right? You don't have to do it. There are certain things that, even like turning the lights off, like or wearing comfortable clothes when I go to bed. These are all normal things. They don't have to be about avoidance. They are more about providing myself comfort during that time. So when the underlying reason for that changes, then it really changes the whole idea about a sleep effort. Essentially, even realizing that nothing outside of us can create sleep. Then it becomes a non-factor, whatever we are deciding to do. So if we think that reading a book every evening feels like an effort, the moment when we realize that even if I read the book, it doesn't mean that sleep must happen. It can, but it doesn't have to. And then that in itself offers this kind of like release of energy, and we just, decide like whether we truly want to just read the book, and whatever happens, happens, right? So just want to kind of, specify that we don't need to get rid of all sleep-related behavior in order for us to keep moving with the recovery. And then there's also question about how long can I expect bad nights, and when will good nights start to pick up. And this question about time is tricky because our brain really wants to get control over the situation. And because the problem of the whole, insomnia struggle is that we are trying to control something that is essentially beyond our control, then setting any sort of timeline or expectation in terms of like how long it's going to last, it already does a big disservice to us. It already puts our mind at this monitoring and pressuring mode, where even if, we get some sort of like a ballpark, how long it's going to last, that information will actually trip us, and we will constantly be thinking about it, and we will pressure ourselves to, to feel a certain way or to experience certain nights, and that in itself is going to unfortunately create more pressure and more challenging nights. So therefore, as much as possible, abandoning the whole idea of having some sort of deadline or timeline is very helpful. And so just taking this journey one day at a time, every single day, just seeing how can I become a tiny bit more accepting, a tiny bit more self-kind toward myself, or even like a tiny bit more courageous. That's what this whole journey is about. Not trying to guess all the things that we will need to do 10 steps ahead. We're just working with what's right in front of us. And then that's how the whole journey unfolds. So hopefully this was helpful. And let's get to the next question. I get a song stuck in my head that keeps repeating. Even when I wake up at night, it persists and becomes annoying. When I try to distract myself, it returns making me anxious. What should I do to stop it? Well, to me that sounds like what we usually call like earworms. It's some sort of some thought form, maybe that can take a shape of a sound, that kind of like is intrusive, and we find it highly annoying. It's not comfortable, and so we begin to fight it. And because we are trying so hard to not have that thought or that song playing in our minds, that paradoxically makes it even stronger and more sticky, because resistance always fuels this kind of like experiences. And so because resistance is a culprit here, the thing that makes that song sticky, the opposite of resistance is what can allow us to become free from that intrusive song or thought, right? And the whole process is about changing our relationship with that sound or a song or a thought. When we see it as a problem or as the enemy that we need to fight, then of course our brain is going to be even more fixated on it. It's going to it's even more likely to remember about it, right? But when we normalize having a thought and see it as something that is just involuntary and something that is inherently innocent and harmless, then our brain starts to get a message that it doesn't have to fight against whatever thing that is coming up in our mind. And so the importance of that thought form or a sound, right, starts to go down. And things that are not really important, they don't really stick longer in our minds. Things that are usual, ordinary, like casual, they don't really have that sticky quality. Only things that we label as important or somehow dangerous, that's what gets our attention. So by changing the way we look at this thought or intrusive thought, that's how we can slowly become free from it. So hope that was helpful. And one more thing just to add to this. we can even try to even befriend the song itself. If, let's say, if it's something repeating, like happening, maybe we can just even like sing along or show any sort of sign that we are not fighting this, we are not looking at it as a problem. And like a friendly perspective on it can also ease a lot of pressure. So just wanted to add that. The third question. Hi, Alina. Feeling stuck here. Feelings and thoughts are overwhelming. My sleep was improving from 0 to 6 or 7 hours every day. It happened after learning about acceptance. But when I shared about my improvements, I became anxious at night again, and those struggles began. I traveled 550 kilometers to my sister's residence, even with this fear, but here I'm not able to sleep. How to get back to true acceptance? Feeling like I'm back to square one, and this feeling is not a good one. I used to enjoy my day even with less sleep or zero sleep, and I was almost 0% anxious when I woke up in the middle of the night. But now I'm falling back into the old loop. Well, I really understand the situation, and of course I empathize with this, the whole the experience of it, like how frustrating this is, how demotivating it is to witness some improvement and then having a more challenging experience. And it really can feel like we've hit a square one situation. So I'm going to address it. But first, what I want to kind of like start with is that what this person describes sounds like a very classic speed bump. And this is not to kind of minimize the suffering, because of course it's very, very uncomfortable and very frustrating, right? At the same time, everything that is shared in this message to me is something that I hear a lot in, like, when people bring up their experiences of speed bumps, and I can also relate to this struggle myself. So knowing that this experience, as difficult as it may be, is a normal part of the recovery process, can already drop some of the pressure that we are feeling when it comes to navigating the challenges. And so there is one interesting thing that kind of like stood out for me. It is the sentence, when I shared about my improvements, I became anxious at night. And this is very common, that when we start noticing the first moments of things are finally getting better, right? Sometimes our brain can take it as something that needs to be protected from now on. And so the pressure grows. And this is what I call success reaction, right? Usually one of the things that can create a speed bump is this reaction to success. Another reason is also could be a reaction to change, right? But in this case, it seems like this person just acknowledged the improvement, probably shared with friends or family members, and then they felt kind of pressure to maintain this, to kind of like stick to this new experience. And of course, when we set for ourselves this kind of task, oftentimes pressure increases, and then our brain becomes very uncomfortable and very scared at night, right? And so just knowing that this is normal, that you haven't undone this process just because you let's say you acknowledge your success and then feeling a little bit more turbulent, it's completely normal. It doesn't mean that you've actually moved backwards or that you went back to square one. And this is the part that I wanted to also to address, that I'm back to square one, and this feeling is not a good one. And I completely understand that it doesn't feel good to be in that state. But what I usually share in this situation is that feeling like being at square one is not the same as actually being at square one. In the recovery process, we are going to face a lot of turbulences, and in the midst of that turbulence, there's going to be most likely a feeling like I'm starting this all over again. And this is what I called fake square ones. They are not actual square ones, but they feel very, very real, right? The reason why it's actually like not the real square one is because for us to be back at square one, we need to erase from our memory everything that happened from that moment of, beginning up till until now. So we need to completely forget anything that happened within that. We need to forget the education that we've done, the dynamic that we've seen our body producing sleep despite our fear or whatever, right? So we need to forget those kind of stuff, right? Then we can say like, okay, we are actually back at square one. But in reality, like, we cannot forget things that we've learned. We cannot unsee what we've seen. If we've seen that, okay, my body is actually capable of surviving this experience, that evidence is not something that is going to evaporate, right? We might feel scared, of course, at any point, like the fear might show up, but it doesn't cancel the progress that's been made. And so just reminding ourselves that we are not in actual square one situation. We are more, we experiencing feelings that are kind of resemble the square one situation, but we are not the same person anymore. We are not the same person who didn't know what was going on and who was very, very scared, right? We've learned a lot already, and this is something no speed bump will take away from us. And then usually when the speed bump kind of like comes to a completion or it just kind of like fades away, then we start to realize actually we haven't lost anything. It was just this momentary doubt that crept in, and we just felt very uncertain about it. So just reminding ourselves that there are going to be fake square ones can already put our minds at ease. So even when we feel like that we were starting over again, just the mere fact of the presence of that feeling can already show us that actually nothing unusual is happening, and we are just going through a very classic speed bump. So I hope this was helpful. I would also maybe add to this is that the path to acceptance is very kind of like usually wobbly. We are going to experience first glimpses of acceptance, but then there are going to be parts of time like we are going to feel like we have no acceptance at all, or we forgot how to accept. And this is normal. There's going to be this kind of like in and out dynamic. So for acceptance to become our more like second nature, it needs to happen more and more times. And in between those glimpses of acceptance, there are going to be moments when we resist. And even those moments of resistance could be accepted, could be taken as a part of this process. And we don't have to criticize ourselves for having this. Because again, like trying so hard to accept something is also a form of resistance, right? So acceptance is like so gentle, so all-encompassing that even the moments of resistance when we cannot accept something is also something that we can look at and just realize, well, maybe that's just a part of this process and there's nothing wrong about feeling resistant for now. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day.